Imagine walking through an entire city where every building remains exactly in place, every pane of glass intact, every street too silent. There is no smoke, no destruction, no signs of explosions, only absence. An absolute void that cannot be explained by physical force, but by something far more discreet and infinitely more deadly. A technology capable of preserving the landscape while erasing all the bodies that existed within it, as if life were a removable layer. A weapon created not to destroy the world, but to leave it terrifyingly intact and yet completely empty. The idea of a weapon capable of preserving a city's architecture while silently eliminating all human life seems at first glance like a concept straight out of a scientific nightmare. However, this technology not only existed, but was developed by ordinary people. Researchers, engineers, and military strategists who saw in high-energy neutrons a supposedly cleaner solution to Cold War conflicts. Amidst the tension between superpowers and the constant threat of nuclear destruction, a project emerged that would transform radiation into a surgical tool of war, preserving concrete and condemning bodies. Unlike traditional nuclear bombs, whose devastation is visible, audible, and immediate, the neutron bomb operates in an invisible field. No facades collapse, no flash consumes the streets, no horizon is engulfed in atomic mushrooms. The impact occurs within people, silent, inevitable, irreversible. It was the weapon that promised to eliminate entire troops without damaging roads, bridges, or buildings. A tool made to be efficient, not spectacular, deadly, not flashy. The emergence of the neutron bomb was not an ideological accident, but the direct result of a growing strategic concern. As the Cold War intensified, militaries and scientists began to realize that traditional nuclear weapons, despite their power, destroyed both the enemy and the territory they sought to control. Entire cities became unusable for decades, and strategic regions were transformed into toxic areas, wasting infrastructure that could be salvaged after a conflict. This context opened the door to a disturbing question. Would it be possible to create a weapon that killed people but preserved everything around them? The answer came from nuclear physics, more specifically from thermonuclear fusion, modulated to intensify the emission of fast neutrons. Unlike conventional bombs, which release heat, light, pressure, and electromagnetic radiation, the neutron bomb redirected its energy to maximize internal lethality, targeting living organisms at the cellular level. Buildings absorbed only a fraction of this flux, while biological tissues were saturated with particles capable of passing through matter as if it were almost transparent. It was an extreme application of scientific knowledge, not increasing the weapon's power, but concentrating it on what matters most in war, the enemy's survival. What makes this technology particularly grim is the fact that it was conceived with full awareness of its effect. Scientists openly discussed the idea that a cleaner weapon would paradoxically be more deadly. While conventional nuclear explosions left visible marks and destroyed everything around them, the neutron bomb left behind a deceptive scene where everything seemed normal from a distance, an intact, silent, and motionless city, as if life had been surgically removed. It was the scientific realization of a modern nightmare, the possibility of a massacre without ruins, without traces of traditional destruction, and perhaps for that reason, all the more disturbing. When Samuel Cohen presented the idea of the neutron bomb in the late 1950s, he wasn't proposing a conventional weapon, but a profound shift in the strategic philosophy of the Cold War. For many American strategists, especially those observing the advance of Soviet tanks in Europe, the vision of a weapon capable of neutralizing large armored concentrations without ruining the territory seemed seductively logical. The neutron bomb fit perfectly into this reasoning. Small, precise, and deadly enough to wipe out a battalion, yet respectful of the urban environment surrounding the target. It was the promise of a clean war, an ethical contradiction that the scientists involved preferred not to confront directly. Tests conducted from 1963 onwards demonstrated that the technology worked, but also exposed its limitations. In laboratories and test fields, experts realized that the neutrons, despite being extremely penetrating, dispersed in the air more rapidly than initial predictions suggested. Nitrogen, dominant in the atmosphere, absorbed a significant portion of the particles. This reduced the weapon's lethal range, making it less effective than theoretical calculations indicated. Even so, within the appropriate radius, its impact remained devastating. Devastating not to buildings but to living organisms, a contrast so brutal that it defied any moral justification. Even with real limitations, the strategic implications of the weapon were enough to unsettle the world newspapers, and militaries began calling it a humanitarian bomb, an expression laden with irony and discomfort. The idea of eliminating soldiers without destroying cities seemed efficient to some. To others, it was evidence that humanity was moving towards a type of war where the objective was no longer to conquer territories, but merely to erase bodies. The greatest threat lay not only in the power of the weapon, but in the trivialization of the idea that killing could be a technically clean operation. It was this moral shift, as silent as the neutrons themselves, that transformed the bomb into a constant shadow during the Cold War. As the decades progressed, the neutron bomb came to be seen not only as a moral aberration, but as a technology that had escaped the purpose for which it had been created. The terrestrial battlefield, complex and full of atmospheric variables, did not offer the ideal environment for neutron behavior. Paradoxically, it was far from Earth, in space where there is no air, dust or nitrogen to block radiation, that this weapon found a new strategic dimension. In high orbits, neutrons could travel long distances without significant energy loss, creating a silent threat against satellites and missiles. It was the ultimate application of the initial idea: to destroy systems, not structures; to prevent actions, not to devastate cities. In this context, the neutron bomb came to be seen as a form of space interception. A single pulse of neutrons could disable the electronics of intercontinental nuclear warheads before they entered the atmosphere, neutralizing attacks without generating dangerous debris or radioactive clouds. It could also disable enemy satellites, erasing communication and surveillance networks, without leaving behind fragments that would exacerbate the already worrying problem of space debris. It was an ironic function for a weapon initially criticized for its supposed cleanliness. In space, it actually became a less polluting option than conventional explosions. However, this reinvention did not eliminate the ethical shadow that always accompanied it. The fact that a weapon designed to kill silently was recycled to protect orbital systems only reinforced the central contradiction of technology. Even when used for defense, its essence remains linked to destruction. The neutron bomb, whether on the ground or in the vacuum of space, reveals the most unsettling aspect of human ingenuity: the ability to transform science into a surgical instrument of death, adaptable and indifferent to the environment in which it operates. A weapon molded to operate without spectacle, without ruins and without visible traces, but always bearing the signature of emptiness. The most disturbing part of the whole story emerges when one considers the concrete human impact of the neutron bomb, not in the realm of theory, but in practice. Unlike traditional nuclear explosions, which kill through extreme heat or crushing pressure, the effect of neutron radiation is internal, silent, and progressive. It passes through the body with almost disconcerting ease, destroying cells, disrupting vital functions, and causing organ failure that accumulates within hours. There is no flash, no visible destruction, no physical scar left on the landscape. Only organisms that rapidly deteriorate from within, as if life had been switched off by an invisible command. This type of death, described by experts of the time, exposes the cruelest aspect of the logic that underpinned the development of this weapon: the idea that military efficiency justified transforming human biology into a primary target. In internal documents and analyses, death was discussed as a calculated collateral effect, and the intact city as a strategic benefit. It is precisely here that the reality becomes most unsettling. This is not just a technological project, but a profound ethical shift, in which the line between science and morality completely dissolves, leaving only brutal functionality. The climax of this reflection arises when one understands that the greatest risk of neutron weapons has never been merely their use, but the normalization of their concept. A weapon that kills without destroying may, paradoxically, seem more acceptable to governments and strategists. And it is this type of reasoning that opens dangerous doors. If it is possible to erase lives without leaving a trace, then the very act of killing becomes easier to justify. The neutron bomb threatens not only bodies, it threatens the moral structure that prevents humanity from crossing limits from which there is no return. The history of neutron bombs remains an uncomfortable reminder of how far humanity can go in its attempt to balance power, efficiency, and control. Over the past few decades, it has oscillated between military promise and ethical threat, always carrying with it the same contradiction. That of being a weapon capable of preserving the external world while devastating the internal one. It doesn't destroy streets, it doesn't knock down bridges, it doesn't incinerate cities. It only silently removes those who live in them. It is a type of violence that leaves no scars on the landscape, but leaves deep marks on our understanding of our own morality. Revisiting this dark chapter of contemporary history, it's impossible not to question the direction we're taking as a species. If such technologies were created, debated, and openly tested, what else might await us in a scenario of global tension? To what extent does the search for efficient weapons lead society to normalize increasingly silent and surgical methods of elimination? The neutron bomb is a persistent shadow because it exposes an uncomfortable truth. The line between defense and extermination may be much thinner than we imagine. If this content made you reflect, subscribe to the channel, like the video, leave your comment, and share your perspective on the topic. Every interaction helps this type of discussion reach more people and keeps the debate alive about technologies that are silently shaping the future of the world. Subscribe to follow our upcoming investigations and continue exploring with us the darkest chapters of human history.